If you're someone who thinks that teams should be punished for denying points, for manipulating the points on the leaderboard, and you think that every single team should be going for the win no matter what, there is zero reason why you should not prefer most chickens over points rule. And let me explain why. We're all of the understanding that in battle royales, you need to play multiple games in order to judge which team is the best team. There are so many uncontrollables, not just in terms of what the game itself gives you and like loot, where the plane is going, and most importantly the circles and where they shape up, but also the butterfly effect, the domino effect of something happening on one side of the map and then 10 minutes later coming to affect a team that was not involved and didn't even know that it happened and had no read on the situation. All these uncontrollables mean that one game is too low of a sample size to know who is the best team, who is the best team at the tournament, at the event, etc. You can discuss how many games it takes to figure that out. There's no right answer. There were a bunch of wrong answers, of course, like 1, 2, even 6, I think is a pretty wrong answer in terms of PUBG, though obviously it can vary depending on the battle royale itself. But there's no distinctly right answer for deciding how many games. The point is that you play multiple games. But because the game itself only cares, did you win, yes or no? Were you the lone survivor? How we rate teams based on their performance is a level on top of the game that is artificial in the sense that it was not baked into the game itself from conception. So the point system that we have in PUBG, the current super points rule, is 10 for first, 6 points for second, down all the way down to 7 and 8 getting 1 point, and then 9th getting 0, and you get an extra point per kill. That's all stuff that we've added on top. That was never programmed in the game itself. The game has no factoring of what that does. But because we have added that extra level, that itself has become the win condition. The reason why teams go for the win, go for first place, it's not because winning the game is the win condition. It's the points that come from winning the game that is the win condition. First place is a 4-point jump over second place. No other positioning placement has that big of a jump. Everything else is just 1 more point, 1 more point, 1 more point, and then bam, 4 more points getting from second to first place. So the value from getting that first place comes from the points. It is a big jump. But as we all know, not every win is accessible to every team. There are times that a team is in the center compound of a circle and they're just they get the circle every single time and they don't really have to fight, and it's almost, if not literally impossible, for a team to approach them without getting completely mowed down. It's up to the team in the center to throw a game in order for them to lose. So why then do we expect teams to go for the win in unlikely situations when they themselves know that the chance of victory is so small? Just as they are getting kills, not just for the placements, not just to get themselves closer to the win, but also for the points, they are very aware of the points that everyone else is also accumulating. And whether you like it or not, being aware of and manipulating the points whenever you have the agency to do so is the win condition in these games. It is a side effect of points rule being the format of judging progress, judging competency, judging skill with these points. That is now the win condition, not the in-game win itself. So let's go over some examples. On the second weekend, STK and EU United were both in the top 4, and there's a situation that, because of the circle shift and the terrain that both these teams had to play off of, EU United were almost guaranteed to take the win. EU United also had a man advantage over STK. They had terrain advantage, positioning advantage, circle advantage. They had almost every single advantage that you could hope for. There was almost no way for STK to win this unless not only they performed out of their mind, but EU United also threw. And because they were both so close, neck and neck on the leaderboard, you have to start to run some mathematics in your head. STK had 8 points to gain in that final confrontation. 4 points for the 4 kills of EU United, and then 4 points from jumping from second to first place. They'd already guaranteed second. There was only 2 teams left. But then United, all they had to gain was the 3 kills from STK, which when you look at those numbers, well, surely STK should go for the play then because, oh, that's +8, but maybe -3 in terms of how that is going to shift their positioning on the leaderboard. But then you have to remember that STK were in such a bad position that it wasn't going to be a coin flip. It wasn't going to be a 50-50 shot. It was maybe 10%, maybe 20% if you wanted to be generous, of STK winning that game. So it was highly likely, if not guaranteed, that STK would be giving 3 points away to one of their opponents on the leaderboard when we were in far deep in the second half of the tournament. Very likely that they would be giving them those 3 points for the off chance that they instead would get those 8. You might disagree with that decision. You might disagree with the math, but the point is that STK did not want to give up those free 3 points. And when you look at how close things remained towards the end of the tournament, there was a chance that those 3 points could have been the deciding factor if other games later on went different. That's not to say that every single case of point denial is the correct choice. There was one situation that 22 Esports were hanging out in center compound, center of the circle, something that they've been able to do in multiple rounds over the course of the event, but it was Synergy Esports that was in position to potentially try and contest them in the late game. But Synergy Esports was playing the entire late game super slow, super conservatively, and I remember I was on the broadcast for this, I was commentating, I was defending them saying that they were trying to snake out second place from Young Kings, who were also struggling to get into the circle from that position. They just wanted to outlast Young Kings, get that extra point, and then my guess is that they were going to go die to blue, because they were not putting up any sort of real fight. They were just trying to outlast Young Kings. 22 Esports didn't let them deny, but in the way that Synergy were playing, I don't imagine that they would suddenly try and like step up and try and go for the win out of nowhere, because up until that point they were not playing in that way. This, however, would be a bad situation for a team to be playing like this, to be denying points in this situation, because this was after Synergy had already slipped from their top position. They opened up the event very, very well, but then they started to play very, very conservatively and started to play not to win, but to play to not lose. And as we've seen throughout the history of not even all esports, but just PUBG in general, that barely ever works. In fact, I would say it has never worked. Every single time when you enter the final few games and the team in first place tries to play safe, they always get upset by the team that is coming in from behind hot and heavy. So Synergy in this position were multiple days of playing super safe, super conservatively, very, very low points every single game. In this situation, it doesn't matter the disadvantage that they had. 22 Esports and Young Kings were not in a position to catch up, at least not yet. So even though Synergy were unlikely to win that game, this is 100% a position that they should have gone for the gamble, because the actual plus minus effective value of the result of either winning or going out heavily advantages going for the win. If they lose, they give the points to Young Kings, they give the points to 22 Esports. That means virtually nothing. But so does denying the points. Denying points is not to help you, it's to harm your opponent. And 22 Esports and Young Kings were not in a position for them being harmed to really affect Synergy. At least not yet. As frustrating as it might seem to be watching a 30-minute game that ends in a very anticlimactic way, if you are someone who wants the win to be the end goal, if you want the win to be the win condition, then most chickens is the format for you. And if that's the case, that's perfectly fine. But in the world of points rule, when it is about collecting the most points for yourself, the side effect is you are also going to attempt to reduce the points that your opponents have. Thus, point denial is a very, very important strategy to be considerate of. You're not going to be using it all the time. In fact, I think most of the time teams should lean against it, but it's going to be a tool. It has to be a tool in your arsenal to use. If you're a team towards the bottom, you should be trying to go for every single point that you can get. But if you're towards the top and you are neck and neck with your opponent, knowing where you can manipulate the points given versus the points taken is it has to be a strategic tool in your tool set. And as a viewer, if you do not care for strategic tools like this, then frankly, just admit that you want to watch team deathmatch. And that's perfectly fine if you do. But the beauty of esports is not just the mechanical skill expression, but also the tactical skill expression. The balance between those two varies from game to game, but there is not a single game that does not have a fair bit of tactical skill expression, even if mechanical skill expression is the primary expression in the game.